Already.
And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the episode 76 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast for indie authors by indie authors, where we discuss today's topics and issues that matter to the business of the self-published author. Filling in for our moderator, Wade Finnegan, who is off saving the world against troubled mothers. I am indie author Xavier Granville, and with me is my co-panelist, Michelle Reed. Say hello, Michelle.
Hello, Michelle.
Ah, good. So since Wade isn't here, we thought we'd bring back our good friend of the podcast, author and all-around good guy, Robert Chaz Chute, as a part of the just tonight's special episode, and he's coming in as a special guest panelist. He's kind of like a panelist, but he's special.
Wait a minute. Do I have to wear the helmet?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wear a helmet. That's not that kind of special.
Right.
You may-
So too.
Nah, you
Michelle
went there,
said
not me. Okay, and of course, the man of the hour, our special guest for the evening, author and master of efficiency, a veritable Olympian when it comes to word count, Mr. Matt Morris.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. People say master of efficiency, but I often feel like I don't get anything done, to be honest.
Well, I figured I had to make up some titles for you, and that just kind of rolled off the tongue.
No, he's just being humble. Don't believe a word. He's fishing.
Well,
Thank you for taking that bait, Xavier.
I can see that he's sitting down and drinking wine, so I know he's definitely not fishing.
It's just colored water. It's
Mm-hmm. Is that why you're getting warm?
yeah. No, it's whatever.
I'm pretty sure it started off as water and then you turned it into wine. So
He's that good, people.
yeah, he is that good. Boom.
Before we get started,
Yeah.
Erica wants to know what you're drinking, Matt. Can you show us?
I know. There it is, right there. I'm drinking a Dreamy Tree Cabernet.
Yummy.
I know.
Dreaming Tree Cabernet.
That's what I'm drinking.
Sounds delicious and inspirational.
If you gotta drink it.
And I've got a
Gotta
Diet
drink
Pepsi.
drink that Diet Pepsi too.
I got me some Aquafina too to go with it, but there's significantly more wine in here than there is water. So
Very good. And as usual, to everyone watching us live on the selfpublishingroundtable.com, we encourage you guys to leave us some questions, comments, and we'll do our best efforts, to keep up with the conversation. And at the end of the show, take a moment, leave us a review on iTunes, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. We'll always have our after party, so chime in if you want to participate afterwards. And of course, every like on social media, helps us keep the show up and going. We always appreciate you guys' support. So, to segue into the show, maybe let's just throw it over to Matt and with just a basic general question of just like what got you into indie publishing. Obviously you most likely started off as a writer, but what drove you towards indie publishing? Yeah,
so a little bit about my background. Well, it's funny. I've written my whole life. I've kept a journal pretty actively since I was 18, which was a long time ago. So I've always written, but I never took it really seriously. I studied accounting in college, got 2 degrees in accounting, came out of college and worked in accounting for a long time, and finally back in about late 2011, just decided I was done with that and wanted to try something new with life. So left my job, emailed my dad, told him I'm a writer now, and he said good luck, and been all downhill since then. So that was really how I got started. I saw some of the success stories that people were having in 2011 and said, hey, I can do this. I can meld my love for an art like writing and mush it together with my business background and treat it like a business and approach it that way. And so far so good. So that's that. One of the things that people hold against me or I get a lot of questions about is I don't share any of my writing yet. So everything I've written I've done anonymously, and so it's all under pen names and spread out, and I just don't link it back to me, and I kind of prefer it that way, though. I'm looking to possibly change that this year, so we'll see how that goes. But
that's what we should be talking about, because not only did you get into this thing where you videoed yourself over, like we say, you did NaNoWriMo in a day.
Mhm.
But how many hours was that? Like, was that a 24-hour day, or is that a I get up at 8 in the morning and finish it at midnight kind of day?
Yeah,
Man.
perhaps we should like for those that aren't in the know. And when I mentioned that he was an Olympian at word count, what I meant to say, or at least should mention, is that Matt is, I guess, infamous for on several occasions doing, instead of for the NaNoWriMo contest where you do 50,000 words in a 30-day period, Matt will do it in a 1-day period or less than. And he's done this on several times. I think, what, 2 or 3 times now, Matt?
I've done it a total of 4 times actually. I did it
4.
once in 2013. I did it 3 times this past year in 2014.
Okay, yeah. I watched you do it the second time, but I didn't know
nice.
about the third.
I think that's what's crazy, is that it's not just that you did it; it's that you thought to do it. That's like that. Even to try it would never have occurred to me. So, okay,
Right.
You're a genius. Tell us about that.
No, I take zero credit for this. So basically, it was 2013. It was October, and I'm planning my nano novel. I just had some success with some other pen names, and I decided that for nano, I want to set a good goal of 50,000 words, write the whole novel in a month, which I'd only done one time before that. And really, that's all it was. And I'm sitting at a coffee shop with a friend of mine, and she's on the official Nano forums. And so she kind of looks up at me and she says, "You know that there are people who try to do this in a day." And I have the kind of personality where the minute she said that, something clicked inside my head, and I said, "That's what I have to do."
Challenge accepted.
Exactly. That was it. And so I did it. And I said, not only am I going to do it in a day, to answer one of your other questions, Xavier, not only am I going to do it in a day, I'm going to do it on the 1st. On November 1st. I want it by November 2nd. I want to be done with NaNoWriMo. And so what I did was, and I did this for each of the times I've done it, I start at midnight, which is difficult because of just sleep patterns. That actually, I think, makes it a lot harder than starting at, getting a good night's sleep and starting at 8 in the morning or something. But so I started at midnight, and I go through. And to be honest, the first time I did it was a little bit boring because it was literally just me sitting here in this room and just writing. And I was posting a lot on social media. I was taking screenshots and everything and posting it on Kboards and on Facebook and Twitter and everything else. And it was funny because one of the highlights of that time was I made a comment of, "I haven't had time to eat," and so I barely ate anything that day. And my aunt, who was wonderful, she lives here in Houston too. She ordered pizza for me and paid for it just online or whatever. And so she's like, "Someone's going to be at your door. Just go answer it, and it will be food." And it was very nice of her. But so I started at midnight, and then 3 out of those 4 times I've ended at 11:30 p.m. or later. So, and then the final time I did it, I ended actually significantly earlier. I ended at about 8:30 p.m. I finished it.
Wow. Are you glad you did it? Do you like doing it?
The first time I did it was really I didn't have a plan for it, and so I was kind of resentful actually with myself and my use of time because I tried to be very productive, but I liked that I did it, but I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere because it wasn't inside my normal kind of publishing wheelhouse, and I didn't have a production schedule that was going to take what I was working on and was going to slot it in anywhere. And so, I just kind of wrote it, and it's ugly. In fact, I still have that first one available on my website for a free download. I did that about a year ago, put it up for a free download. So it's like rough draft. It's the first thing I wrote. It's there, available for anyone to check out. It's dirty, it's ugly, but I was kind of upset with myself for taking that time and doing it when I could have spent the same amount of time writing something else. I kind of had the idea of using it for publicity at some point, but I didn't really know when that was going to be. So when I approached this year, 2014, I said, well, I can't just do the same thing. I've got to do something bigger and better. And I had a lot of ideas, and I didn't really get to execute on all of them the way I wanted to, but one of the cool things that I did do was that I live streamed the whole thing on twitch.tv. And so Xavier mentioned that he watched me the second time I did it. It's because I did it live. It was weird because I told a bunch of people how I did it the first time, and it's weird because I'm kind of a cynical person, and so when someone came to me and said I wrote 50,000 in one day, I'd be like, nah, you didn't.
Yeah, I was about to ask how many people called you on bullshit.
Nobody. I was shocked. No, everyone's very trusting out there. Nobody called bullshit on me at all.
Not one picture where it didn't happen.
Yeah, not to my face, anyways. I'm sure I've got my haters. I'm sure that are behind, that talk amongst themselves. But
haters be haters.
Right. And so yeah, no one came to me and said, "Hey, did you actually do that?" And it's kind of cool. I was like waiting for someone to actually do that because I actually recorded the whole thing, and so I have that video somewhere on my computer of me doing it the first time in 2013. But yeah, no, it never really came to that. So in any case, I wanted to one-up that, so I decided I was going to live stream me doing it this past year in 2014. And so I set up a Twitch account, I think the day before. Sometimes I procrastinate too much, but I set up a Twitch account the day before, figured out how to live stream, and then kind of went with it. There were some technical difficulties that first time I did it, but the second and third time I did it more or less went off without a hitch. So
you still made it though. I mean, you still made your goal even though there were technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's it may be something we can get into later, but it's pretty shocking. I looked at an hourly breakdown of how much I was writing during that day with the technical difficulties, and there are multiple hours where there was 1 hour where I didn't write at all. There was another hour where I wrote for like 15 minutes or something like that. And so, yeah, the first time, that was the latest I ran. I came down to 12 a.m., and I think I finished it at 12 a.m. Of the second. And so it was kind of a crazy rush there at the end.
Yeah, and that's got to be such an interesting experience, because a lot of authors will do that thing where they're tracking word count, but it's most of the time, and they're looking for their habits. But most of the time, it's over periods of days rather than hours or minutes. So I bet you that had to be an interesting experience, not only tracking your word count, but seeing those little things of those times where you're like, oh, I know what happened there, or times of struggle for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm very spiky normally. When I sit down to write, so there will be days where I just don't get much done, and then there will be days where everything kind of just gushes out of me and I write a ton. And really my strategy there is just to show up every day and give myself that opportunity to let it happen. But even that said, even showing up every day, some days I write less and some days I write more. But it's never anywhere close to 50,000, and I don't advise anyone to write 50,000 words in one day if they're going to do anything productive with that. This was definitely a stunt. And so
I have a couple questions about that, actually. One is, as far as the live streaming goes, are the people at NaNoWriMo aware that you were doing this? Like, it seems like that would be something they should have on their site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question.
Yeah, I mean, that would come down to, I don't know if they're aware, that would come down to me procrastinating and being an awful marketer and just not putting it anywhere. Like, it would have been smart to post, like, on Nano's official forums. I mean, if they wanted to. It would have been smart to post it on their actual forums and be like, hey, I'm doing this, come check it out, come watch me. But I'm not very good about doing things like that, so I'm not very good about talking myself up like that.
All right, so we'll just throw it out into the ether. If someone wants to email NaNoWriMo and tell them that, hey, there is someone that is claiming that he's doing 50K a day starting on November 1st, maybe it'll happen.
Hey, for all those haters, I found, this was completely unexpected, I have video backup of the ones I did in 2014 also.
Do you now?
Yeah, I didn't realize.
I'm just kidding. I believe you.
The software I was using to stream it, I didn't realize this was saving a feed of it on my computer, just secretly, like in the dark corners. And I happened upon it recently.
The NSA backup.
Yeah, exactly. It's in my NSA folder.
Well, the other question I have is, you not only, Xavier mentioned tracking. We often track word count by day, but you get deep into metrics, right? Like by the hour.
So I can, and typically on my average day, I don't I put it away. Put my journal away that I was showing you last time. I was showing you before. But yeah, typically I keep a journal every day, and part of that journal is I write a little kind of word count log, and I just put it by the hour, and that's mainly so that the hours don't just start slipping by. And so I have a tendency where I'll sit down at the computer and I'll just get distracted like a starving squirrel, right? Just kind of looking around and don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden I sit down at 10 a.m. and next thing I know it's 4 p.m. and I have no idea what happened. And so really to keep myself locked in, what I started doing was just writing down hourly word counts. And so like if you check on my Instagram, Matt Morris Author, you're going to find a lot of pictures on there of me just putting out, it's just like this little like by the hour what I've written. And so just at the top of every hour, I force myself to say, how much did I write or edit? I do it with editing as well. And just to keep myself kind of accountable and say, why was it lower? What can I do? Or whatever the case is.
I started doing that with the editing because I've seen you write it in the corner. So I started doing that too, and it makes my productivity go up. Because I'm like, well, I did 3,000 yesterday edited, so today let's try to get to 4. Instead of going, I wonder if I can do anything today.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I do that by the hour, and then I also do it by the day. So I have a little calendar, printed out calendar, that I wish I had it out. It's buried away somewhere. That I basically just kind of jot down every day what my word count was. And so then I can kind of look at the whole month and say, what was my word count? And it kind of just helps me keep a little bit on task. And if anyone's been, kind of working for yourself for a while, you kind of realize that when you have a single off day or like one off day can turn into 2 off days, can turn into an off week. And then you're like, man, what? And then you're like, it's 2015 already. What happened? And
I'm naked in a ditch.
That's only you, Robert.
In a van down by the river.
Exactly.
Buddy has a question for you whenever you have a minute.
Yeah.
But I lost it, so hold on. Oh, he wants to know if you outlined for your 50K writing stint.
Right. It was Buddy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so each time, the first time I did it in 2014, so the first of those 3, I didn't really have a solid outline, and I think that showed in what I was writing and the speed with which I was writing it. So I have kind of bullet point of what's important and kind of what I want to do. I definitely have an overall plan, and I usually don't work my way all the way through that. So when I'm doing one of these 50,000 word things, again, a stunt. This is not efficient, like actual writing. This is completely a stunt. So when I'm doing it, I don't necessarily follow the outline super tight. I just kind of make sure I use it as prompts to get me to have something to write. And so I'll be going through and I get really wordy with some things, or things go off one direction or they go off another direction, and I never correct it. I just let it flow. As long as I'm writing, I don't care. That's not how I normally approach writing, but I normally approach it with an outline, and I try and stick to that outline. But yeah, for the 50,000 words, I have a general idea of where I'm going, and then I just I use it as, kind of rough lines in the road that you're trying to stay on when the officer pulls you over after you've had a bottle of wine.
Of Dreaming Tree wine.
Yeah, they probably don't need too many plugs. Maybe they do. I don't know. Cheers.
They are now sponsoring this podcast.
I wish. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I'm looking for more questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I do use an outline. And then for the 50,000 words, it's just a good place to start.
Well, Matt, thanks to you, you're the one to blame if it goes terribly, terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. I now am part of RescueTime. Can you tell us about RescueTime? Because you converted me. I am a convert. I am a disciple of RescueTime now.
What is RescueTime?
Yeah, that's
just so I know and our audience knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Mostly so I know.
RescueTime is wonderful, and it's not just for writing. RescueTime is a I don't want to say it's a productivity app, but it kind of is. It depends on how you use it. Basically, all it is it's a free app. They have a premium version that you can pay for, but it's a free app. It goes on your computer, Windows or Mac, and it's the NSA for your computer. It just tracks everything you do and logs it away and uploads it to China or wherever it goes. And so you're able to just log into their website, and you can see where you're spending your time. because it's got an active log when you're doing pretty much anything. And so one of the advantages of doing that is you can go back and just kind of see, hey, where did I spend my time? Where did I, what was I doing? How can I make that better? How can I make that more efficient? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? And things like that. So, yeah, so basically it's really interesting to look at some of this stuff. Couple key notes, because I get a lot of pushback when I suggest people use this. Because they say, well, what if I have YouTube open? What if I have Netflix open? I don't want it to record all that time. It only records whatever is active, so whatever your active window is. At least this is the way it works on Mac. I assume it works the same way on Windows. It only records what's active, and it only records it while you are actively using it. So while I'm writing in Scrivener or Write or Die, those are the two writing programs I use, it will be recording that time while I'm doing it. Right now, since I'm not doing anything on my computer, I just have Google Hangouts open, it's not actually recording anything, even though I'm doing stuff. So that's one of the caveats to be aware of. But what's really interesting is, as you kind of build up data, and I've been using it since September, I think, it's really interesting to go back and be able to look at it after the fact and just kind of look at, a typical month and see how much time did you spend on Facebook? How much time did you spend on Twitter? How much time did you spend actually writing in one of your writing programs? And I'm coming from a professional accounting background where I had to, I worked on a billable hourly basis where I had to track my time. I've always been a huge fan of tracking time, and one of the nice things about RescueTime is that it's always running. I don't have to turn it on. It's just on. You can tell it if you want it to only watch you between 8 and 5, 8 a.m., 5 p.m., or you can tell it stuff to ignore, like ignore all the time on Netflix because I know I waste too much time on there, so just don't even record it.
Do not tell me about Netflix. I know I spend too much time.
Exactly, and so there's a lot of features that you can customize, but really it's just it's a nice way to take a look at where you're actually spending your time while you're on your computer. So I have it installed I actually have work accounts on my home desktop, which we're on right now, and on my laptop, and I have RescueTime running on those work accounts only. And so I have a personal account. If I do personal stuff, it's usually on there, so that time doesn't get recorded. But so it helps me to see how much time was I actually working, because not all, but most of my time is spent on actively on the computer while I'm working. But yeah, so that's RescueTime. So, Robert, you're going to have to let me know how it works out for you.
Well, I think it's a great tool so far. From what I've seen of it, I really like it. And I think anything that allows us to get real about our time. I know you're very protective of your writing time, very aware of your time, and a lot of that, we can only change it once we measure it. So, yeah. When I hear somebody say, how long did it take you to write that book? And typically a lot of authors will say, years. Okay, well, how much of that time was procrastination? And how much of that time was actually writing? And how much of that time was useful cogitation? And we can't measure the useful cogitation, but if we broke it down to how many hours a book actually really took, I think a lot of people would be really shocked about how incredibly unproductive they are. And in fact, you told me something really interesting about the NaNoWriMo challenge that you did.
Yeah, well, hold that thought. I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, okay, then I can shut up. Please go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, it might be kind of cool. I'll go ahead and, if you'll allow me, I'll share my desktop right now, and I've got a couple reports pulled up from RescueTime, and I can kind of show you what it is and what it does, and so everyone can kind of get an idea, because it's really, really handy.
Yeah, let's do that.
If I can figure out how to do this. Okay, got it. Do that. So hopefully everyone can see it. So what you're looking at right now is you're looking at my month of October, last year, sorry. And this was probably one of my more typical months. And so this is just some aggregated reports. This is strictly my writing time, right? Just writing. And so this doesn't include any time I was on Facebook or anything like that. And so I could include all of that. But I wanted to look at when am I actually writing. So over the course of the whole month, this is time spent actually writing. This is specifically right here, what you're seeing is time of day. So it's kind of neat to see, okay, well, it looks like really I work at all hours, right? But most of my work gets done right there between 8 and 6, just like a typical person. And then we'll just ignore all this crap going on over here because I don't suggest people work at those times.
But then again, a lot of people are looking for these patterns anyways in just in just, you know, by making notes or like diaries like you do. So just to see it on this graph, you know.
Exactly. And then also, this is by day of the month. So this is just looking at, and this is what I was talking about earlier.
And we do apologize to all the audio listeners that don't get to see these graphs.
Oh, yeah.
Do click on to the self-publishing-roundtable.com/spurt076-mad-morris, and you'll be able to watch the YouTube video.
That's a mouthful. Yeah, I apologize. I didn't even think of that for people who are audio only. So basically what we're looking at now is a graph of my month. So you'll see I spent 62 hours. This is specifically just writing. So this is write or die or Scrivener. 62 hours in that over the course of the whole month. And again, that's active time. When you're not actively in it, it doesn't record the time. And so you'll see I published something right there. That's why there's a big drop off. And so this is where I said I'm a spiky writer, where some days I write more, some days I write less, and that's just the way it goes. So that's kind of cool. But Robert, to come back, well, I've got this screen shared. What Robert was going to pull up, or was going to mention, because I shared this with him before, he said, okay, since you're tracking your time, what did it look like when you wrote 50,000 words in one day? Okay, so this is on the first, 11/1. So it took me to write those 50,000 words, it took me 18 hours, 36 minutes. And you know, most of that was in write or die, and then some of it was in Scrivener. On the second time I did it this year on 11/15, that's shocking right there. 18 hours, 38 minutes. And I finished half an hour earlier, but it took almost the exact same amount of time to write the 50,000 words. Now the third time...
Wait a minute, Matt, say that again slowly, because people really need to hear that.
Well, so I finished half an hour earlier overall on the day. I finished at 11:30 versus midnight. But it took me pretty much the exact same amount of time to write the 50,000 words. And what's interesting is this novel was actually much more planned than the first one was. And so, yeah, and so it took the same amount, pretty much the same amount of time. Now the third time, either based on planning, because I did do a lot more planning for the third one, either based on planning or just overall being tired of doing 50,000 words in a day, I said, I'm just going to get this done. So here was the third time. And it was the fastest of all of them, 16 hours, 38 minutes. So I improved it by 2 hours, which overall meant an improvement of almost 4 hours on the actual day, because I finished at 8:30 versus 11:30 or midnight. But yeah, so this is RescueTime. Some of the reports you can run. That's kind of the one of the cool things that you can do is really just kind of look at your time that way.
So you've looked at this as a stunt, and you've looked at this as kind of a writing exercise. But with any of those three, have you decided to take any of those three back to editing and take it out to publication?
Yeah, and well, what's interesting is, so I did these three, and then I also did the one in 2013. They're all in the same series, and they're all different books. And so I've essentially got those 4 novels, which are ugly. And I've got another one that I wrote even before that I did a first draft on. And they're just kind of sitting on my computer. So my plan is this year to get all of those and maybe one additional one published. And so I'm probably going to publish them all at the same time. But one of the cool things that I'm going to be doing while working on those is that I'm actually going to continue live streaming it on Twitch. And so I had a lot of people, when I was live streaming, there were a lot of people commenting on just my process of writing and taking notes and placeholders and all these little things I do to make sure that I keep writing and don't stop and get stalled anywhere. A lot of people were saying, hey, are you going to edit are you going to stream it when you edit these and clean these up? And so I basically just determined that when I'm working on stuff for this pen name, for Matt Morris, I'm just going to stream it. I'm gonna put it on Twitch, and I'm going to let people see what I'm doing, and they can interact and ask questions and whatever they want, and they'll get to read it if they want to sit there and read it. There were a lot of people. I think Erica is in the leaving comments right now. I saw, and she was among a few of my friends who were all kind of commenting on my characters and commenting on the story while I was writing the 50,000 words. And so it's, it just kind of builds a community, and it's kind of fun to get that interaction when normally I'd just be sitting here working by myself.
Did you have anybody that was used it as background noise while they were working?
So I had a lot of people. Someone actually told me that I should put together just an MP3 file, like a sound file of me typing, because they said it's good like filler noise or whatever. I'm gonna open something here. Here we go. So they just.
Oh,
no, you're muted.
You're muted.
Womp womp.
I don't know why that muted. That's weird. In any case, it was me typing. Apparently, Google doesn't like me, so.
Oh, that's why it muted because you were typing.
Maybe, yeah. So so people were like, oh, you should put together just a background soundtrack of typing, of an hour of typing, and I don't know, maybe I'll just strip out the audio or something of what I was doing.
I have an app on my computer that makes it sound like an old-timey typewriter, and my son, who was 11 at the time, came down and he was looking it up and he said, "What is that sound?"
I have a mechanical keyboard sitting right now somewhere in the house, and it's just like clack, 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 clack. So when I get going, I can type really fast, and it just sounds like a machine gun or something's going on.
Yeah, no. I used to love the feel of a good old typewriter. I think I have about 3 or 4 in my collection. I don't use them because it's hard to get the right ribbons and stuff like that, or whatever inks that you're using at the time. But man, are those things fun!
Well, and a lot of work. It's like you gotta click, and you gotta like put your hand into it.
And there is and same as when you're writing longhand versus doing things on a computer, with the cut and paste and easy ability to delete. There is a finality to using a typewriter. Once you do click that button, it's in the paper. It's not there's no undo, there's no control, command Z, none of that shit. It's raw, and that's why when you look at all these old pages, of old writers, you would see all these really just weird marks where it just looks like it's 5 different letters all piled on top of each other. That's where the artist or / author or the typesetter, he screwed up.
Right. Right.
And there's something about that that's just so like I said, it's like longhand and just writing out things. There is a creative process behind that that's so different than how we do it versus with a computer age.
Do you spend a lot of time writing longhand or on a typewriter? Do you do a lot of writing that way?
Yeah, I do a lot of writing longhand in copious amounts of notebooks and drawing a lot.
I like that.
How do you feel it affects your writing overall? Do you feel like it slows you down, or do you feel like it's more thought out, or how does that affect it?
Well, and it's interesting because most of the time when I'm doing my longhand stuff, I'm pre-planning, and I'm always doing a lot of outlining. And most of the things that I heavily outlined, I haven't actually released yet, and it's strange that the one thing that I have published so far, it had started off as a joke, or like what you had done with the 50K thing, where it's kind of just a stunt. I started writing a book based on kind of a premise that other authors thought was funny, and from there I was egged on to put it out, and I made it more than what it actually was, and it became an actual novel. And it eventually became now it's going to be a series. So it's interesting that the one thing that I kind of least outlined, but otherwise had, just kind of that spur of people egging me on, was the one that I put out first. But all of the series I'm more excited about, I have spent a lot more time on, but I've never released yet.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I always wonder, because it's all got to get digital eventually, and I spend a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time writing longhand, because I journal a lot. But I don't write. I haven't traditionally. I haven't wrote fiction that way. I do some pre-drafting stuff on pen and paper, um, and so I will write out a lot of dialogue that way, and then I'll kind of use that as a jumping point when I actually sit down to write my scenes. But yeah, I always wonder, how it would affect it if I should write more longhand. I kind of like taking the time to get my thoughts out. So that's something that continually interests me.
Matt, do you have? Is it Evernote that you write longhand and it converts to digital?
You would never know,
I,
guy.
I do like Evernote. Let me. I'll pull it up. I like Evernote. I use Penultimate. I mainly. I don't use it for any fiction. I mainly use it for some various things like meeting notes, or if I'm doing. I started doing my daily to-dos in Penultimate, and I'll show you guys here in a second as soon as I get it all fired up.
I made my daughter start using that. She has to write it in a notebook first, like her book, and then she has to outline it in Penultimate, and she really likes it.
Yeah, so these are the meeting notes we took. I'm in, I think a couple of us are a part of a kind of a private kind of mastermind group, and we have weekly meetings. And so at one of our recent meetings, I just took some notes on here. It's just on my iPad, and so I'll put that in there. And it doesn't. I mean, it converts it digitally because it's digital, but it doesn't convert it to text. I think there are programs out there that are like that, where they'll take your handwriting and you can put it like in an iPad with a stylus.
My husband has one of those.
Yeah, convert it to text. So I think they definitely exist. That's nothing I've really looked into too much.
Yeah, let's ask the chat room. If anybody in the chat room knows the tech for that, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
John Reed, if he's listening still.
Is your husband listening from like 5 feet away in the other room?
He's in there. Yeah, he's in the living room.
That's awesome.
Hey, Matt, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about productivity, because I know you type really fast, and that doesn't necessarily translate to writing fast. But I thought your approach to quotation marks was really cool. Tell the good people about quotation marks, because that blew me away.
Well, I wouldn't say it was an outcome of doing the 50,000 words 3 times this past year. Was by the end of it, I hated quotation marks. Just shift and then, having to hit shift. I didn't like hitting shift. I think there are parts where I just didn't even capitalize either.
But you could just use it with one hand. Use your right hand. Just shift and then it's the button right. You use shift with your pinky, and then it's right there. I know what you're getting at, but isn't this about efficiency?
It is about efficiency, and that's 2 buttons as opposed to 1. So,
but you could just go bam and just hit it at once.
Yeah.
He's got a strategy, though.
Pinky first. First.
One of my friends suggested I use a lot of placeholder characters. And so people, when they watch me when I'm sitting there writing, I will use placeholder characters for notes. So when I want to leave myself a note or something, I'll put like 8 which originally it was star. So I put star and then a note and then star again. Well, hitting shift was too much work, so I took shift out and just started putting 8. And so same thing with the quotation marks. Was a friend said, why don't you just use like a / instead of quotation marks? Or another recommendation was just rebind the / key, the one right above return. I think that's / or backslash. I always forget what they are. But the one right above return, which you don't use it very often, and just rebind that to the quotes, or just put that and then do a find replace after the fact. And I haven't started using that yet, but I'm really tempted to, because that shift quote mark is it's the bane of my existence. I don't like it. It irritates
You might be able to cut another 9 minutes off your time, you think?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm actually going to do the 50,000 words again. So I'm hoping that there may be no more time for that to be tracked, but we'll see. I'm not sure what I'm doing next year yet.
I would say go for double, but not in one day.
I did joke with people to say that I'm working on dictation, and so that I can dictate one part of the story while I'm typing another part of the story.
And you're going to auctioneer school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a very strange
really
version of ambidextrous.
That would be one crap book. That'd be a lot of work for your editor.
That would be some complete shit work.
Yeah.
I would spend way more time trying to clean that up than I would just rewriting the whole thing from scratch.
Yeah, but then you'd have like all the power of one of those high-paid receptionists who has the power of typing, thousands of words a minute and yelling at you, constantly.
Oh, I can do that already. I can type 1,000 words a minute and yell at you. I just get my Scrooge face on right here and just start going.
I always picture you like Flint Lockwood on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, going like this.
Do you have the Flipser defer?
Whoa!
I don't know what that is, so I'm gonna say no, probably not.
No.
The Flint Lockwood diatonic mutagenic food replicator. The Flipser defer.
It sounds really useful.
Okay,
It's a
John has
very
linked
funny
us.
movie.
I think Michelle has some questions from the chat room.
Yes. Number one is John linked us to convert handwritten notes to digital text for this and blah, 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 blah. So he linked it there.
When in doubt, go to Life Hacker. That's where
That's where I found it, actually.
Yeah.
Life Hacker!
So good. Okay.
Thank you, John, wherever you are. We appreciate you very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John!
John should pop his head in and wave behind her without saying anything.
He does every time. Surprise, he's
That'd
not
be
there.
wonderful.
Okay. Can you talk about pen names? Do you use one? And I know that you use several. And what helped you decide to do pen names? And that is an excellent story, I think, that you should share. And do the other authors on the panel use pen names? No, I do not. So go ahead.
Anyone here? Robert uses some, right?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
He gets all quiet now. Like, I'm nice.
I do. I didn't use.
Not going to tell you what they are.
No, well, that's why they're pen names. No, I used to not be comfortable with pen names because I thought I want everybody to know that it's me. Because that way, if you like this, maybe you like that. If you like zombies, maybe you'll like Hitman. If you like Hitman, maybe you'll like my criminal autobiography. Blah blah blah. And
not always true.
Now I feel like my brands have been that readers often don't read that way. So down the road I may disclose, but for now the short answer is yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you use and specifically, not only do you use pen names, but you use anonymous ones, kind of like me.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Right. And so I mean, I use pen names. One of the reasons I started doing it was part of it was confidence. Part of it was coming from a professional background. I kind of preferred not having anything linked to my name. And so, one of the big reasons I did it in the first place was really just was a lot of fear of failure, and so I kind of like the idea of being able to learn the market, learn what I was doing, learn how to write better, and do all of that in a way that if it kind of failed and I fell flat on my face, that it wouldn't. I could just kind of shrug it off and say, well, that wasn't me, and so that's really one of the primary reasons I started doing it. And so I kind of realized after that I enjoyed. I don't mind the spotlight being on me, but I don't need it on me at the same time. And so I enjoyed kind of the anonymity of it, and it allows me a lot of freedom where I kind of share some of my sales results and share kind of highlights with friends and family, I think if they knew. If what I was writing was more linked to me, I think I would be a lot more paranoid about doing that, and wouldn't want to do it as much. And so I kind of like the freedom that it allows me to be able to just kind of do that. There's some drawbacks that come with it, but for the most part, that was the reason I started doing it, and also the reason that I continue doing it. And so this year, with planning on releasing some of these things that I've been doing more publicly, like the nano stuff, and putting it out under my own name, that's kind of a fear of mine, because it's not really something I've done before. So it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm excited for it at the same time. So, as far as do I recommend pen names, to be honest, in my experience, readers, for the most part, don't pay attention to a couple things. Publisher being the biggest of those. People don't know what's published by whom. But on addition to that, kind of, is also the author. I mean, unless you're a household name author, for the most part, your readers don't pay attention to you. And so what I suggest is they're going to readers are going to fall in love with they're going to fall in love with a series, they're going to fall in love with a character, and they're going to kind of pay attention to the author name so that they can figure out how they can find other books in that series. And for the most part, that's about it. And so what I recommend is, if you want to use a pen name, that's kind of up to you. I like it because I don't really care if anything kind of is linked back to me. I don't need any notoriety or anything like that. But I suggest using pen names if you want to use it. I kind of like the protection a little bit, the anonymity, the security of it. But then also for different genres, you want to make sure that you have a good name that fits. My actual last name is Aschlager, which is a mouthful, and so it's hard to fit that on a book, and it's hard to make that kind of memorable, I should say, and to type it out, people would just start hitting consonants.
Yeah, and as far as going for like a book cover, when you look at most things, like that's a lot of vowels. So in print, it's gonna look a little funny.
Yeah, and so that was one of the reasons.
Especially all in capitals.
Exactly. So it's one of the reasons I started using Morris, which is my mom's maiden name. Was just that shorter and so a little bit easier for marketing and branding. And so marketing and branding is the other big reason you want to consider using a pen name and using something that fits whatever genre or market you're trying to hit. And so there's a lot of different things you can do to come up with a pen name, and there's a lot of things I would suggest. But as for whether or not you actually want to use one in the first place, that's kind of something you got to sit down and figure out for yourself.
I think too. I think there are a lot of people who wish that their first book was under a pen name. I think part of that is confidence too. So my solution was not to do a pen name, but to write for stoners, because they're such a lovely audience who are forgiving. But
there you go.
Speak for yourself.
Well, not you, X, but yeah. But the other thing is, it's useful to me at this point because I'm doing more projects with other authors. So instead of having two of us on the cover, it's one person on the cover, and that has there's some logistical reasons for that too, because there's the other aspect of creating an author site for the pen names and all whatever social media you're going to commit to, so it can get into this long logistical tail and a time suck, quite frankly. But it's also that's balanced out by the branding issue. So if you're a male and you're writing romance, you probably have a female name, for instance,
or male or gender neutral also,
or gender neutral, yeah.
Something like Robin.
So yeah, so I guess there are lots of reasons to do pen names besides writing erotica, although that's probably the first thing that sprang to everybody's mind. But because an awful lot of
I get that question a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Do you write erotica?
The other thing that's nice is I think I don't know, you've had more experience with this than I have, Matt, but if you get a nasty review, like a 1-star, and it's on a name that isn't yours, don't you feel kind of like you're wearing your insulated suit when you wear you don't feel any heat from that?
Well, I mean, you still feel it because you wrote it, but you still feel it. But it still requires a thick skin. But I think it does add a layer of insulation. It gives you a little bit of protection from that, so you can shrug it off. You don't have to worry about your friends bringing it up. You're gonna be like, man, you got a bad review. They hated your stuff. That doesn't happen if you don't tell them about it, right? And so,
They're not criticizing me. They're criticizing one of my personalities.
Exactly. I didn't write that. That author wrote that.
And that was going to be one thing I was going to bring up about multiple pen names. Like, I have nothing wrong with pen names, and my always view about pen names is that you should use a pen name always when you don't feel like the body of work represents yourself. But when one author is 7 authors, that's when it gets to that point where I think a level of schizophrenia starts to set in.
Hey, maybe that's a goal. I say go for it. If you got 7, I would say 7 different genres. I wouldn't write in the same genre under 2 different names.
Okay.
That feels
I was
redundant.
about to say you're not saying the goal is schizophrenia, right?
No, I'm saying write whatever keeps you writing. That's another one of the advantages of using a pen name is that if you're gonna, especially a pen name for different genres, is that if you want to write today, I want to write action. Tomorrow, I want to write horror. Sunday, I want to write a sweet romance. And you can do all of that and keep yourself going, keep yourself moving forward in general, as a whole, versus just saying, oh, I have to get this horror book out next, and kind of killing yourself on writing that one thing. So it's kind of nice to be able to segregate yourself from that and separate it all out. But yeah, if you're schizophrenic, that's probably a different issue altogether.
Yeah, if you start smelling the color blue, then you should probably know that you have too many pen names.
What is that? Is that synesthesia? Is that seeing, or you see different
Yeah,
stuff?
synesthesia. Yeah.
I thought you just made that up.
I like to throw in big words that I only kind of know what they are, and so that I can just horribly offend people.
Yeah, I can't remember which. There's a musician that he has synesthesia, and it's if you look at
sounds. Is that? I don't know.
No, he's a DJ, and but if you look at the waveforms, like the audio bitmaps essentially of his music, you'll see some like drawings and weird things in there, because he sees sound as an image. So when you look at the waveform, you'll see like a weird face that it's a sound, and you only see the image of the face when you're actually looking at what the sound looks like on a graph.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
I was not listening just now.
Yeah, you were posting comments.
We're talking about synesthesia, yo.
We started talking in big words, and Michelle tunes out.
Yeah, Xavier was trying to explain algorithms.
You know what? I'm done.
I was explaining algorithms to her earlier on.
Time.
It's kind of like an equation within an equation, and they're all working towards this one greater goal.
Yeah, he couldn't see me because we're texting, but my eyes were going blink, blink.
It's just glaze over.
What you need to do is watch more Doctor Who.
It's done. Deal.
Because at least then you feel like you're smart, because it's all timey-wimey and kind of somewhat, every now and then, some science here and there.
So we
makes sense.
we try and keep the show at an hour, correct?
Yeah, we got about 6 minutes left, so we'll see if there's any more questions or comments.
Wait, if there's any more questions, let us know.
Actually.
But go for it.
Talk.
Okay, I'm gonna raise my hand. Me. The Ride or Die. I want to know how much you love it, because I love it so much.
Oh man, Ride or Die is life changing. I lucked out in that when I first started doing this, I spent way too much time researching and not enough time writing. But one of the things I did while I was researching, this is back in 2012, I've always listened to a lot of podcasts, and so I tuned into to Joanna Penn's podcast years ago, and that's how I found both Ride or Die and Scrivener, the two things that I use pretty much exclusively now. But yeah, Ride or Die is wonderful. It has a range of settings. I have the premium versions. I have both the original Ride or Die, which is actually the one I still use. I've also got Ride or Die 2, which I don't use. I think Ride or Die 2 is the only one available now, but it's nice because it just uses kind of psychological tricks to get you to keep writing.
Which
and
one do you use? That's what I want to know. Which setting do you use?
Oh, to be honest, I started using the most when I first started using it. I used the hardest setting, the one where it's going to delete your words if you stop writing. And ever since then, though, I stopped using that. And honestly, I don't pay attention to what my difficulty settings are, because as soon as that screen starts to turn red, I keep writing, and it never gets beyond that. It starts to turn red, I keep writing, and that's where the benefit lies. So I never really get to the punishments. And
I don't either now. You train yourself to go, oh.
Yeah, well, and what's cool is after you use it for a while is that I don't even need to activate write or die. If I just turn it on, I can just write with it off, quote unquote off, paused or whatever you want to call it. I just use its like text editor to write, and my brain is just used to when it sees this, it writes. And so
it's like yoga. When you roll out your mat, you like get more relaxed.
Yeah, it's just kind of about a ritual and getting in the right mental space. Write or die is wonderful. The hardest thing to do about write or die is just to turn it on in the first place. And and once you do, man, your word count is going to skyrocket. It's not going to be as clean. It'll be a little bit messier, but you're going to get the words out, and it's going to get you through that first draft and allow you to start revising, which is really where you want to be spending your time. I think.
Does anybody here use a dictation program?
No. Someone here doesn't like the sound of her own voice, so no, she doesn't.
Well, dictation, you don't have to. I guess if you use the one where you just record yourself, you'd have to listen back to it. But dictation also includes just voice to text, where you use something like Dragon Naturally Speaking, or even the built-in voice to text on. If you have a Mac, it's built into the operating system, where you can sit there and just dictate words to it.
I had some bad experiences with Dragon Dictate and Dragon Naturally Speaking, but when I found it on Scrivener, I started using it, and it's actually improved immensely. If somebody's tried it in the past and that didn't recognize your accent, I totally get that feeling, but it has improved.
Wasn't that your friend that tried it for like 6 months and couldn't get it?
Yeah. Yeah, they tried to train it and it wouldn't work. And that was the thing, was they kept on calling me up and saying, we've improved it, you lie.
Yeah, and I think that the Scrivener one just uses the Mac functionality.
Yep.
I saw a report or a study recently where someone tested out pretty in depth a vanilla Dragon Naturally Speaking install against the Mac, and found that there was really, I think it was like a 4 to 6% difference between the accuracy on the two, with Dragon being the better of the two.
Yeah, I found a little bit of a difference between the two, with Dragon being a little bit more superior, but I found that only until I actually was using it within Scrivener itself and used it after a little while was I ever actually able to get some results. But then again, the Canadian accent is very different than American as far as the basic.
What are you talking about? Americans don't have an accent. This is nonsense.
Sure you don't.
So yeah, and the key being that you can train Dragon Naturally Speaking, allegedly. I've only barely ever used it. You can train it, and you can't train the Mac one. So what you get from Mac is what you get. You can't teach it your own speaking habits. But yeah, it's something that I've considered, but I've never really taken too seriously. I type so quickly as it is, and my hands, for whatever reason, I mean, the first time I did the 50,000 words this past year, my fingertips were sore afterwards. Other than that, I don't have any lasting, or any, not even lasting, but any pain whatsoever in my wrists or fingers or anything like that after writing. So, and I type between 100, I can type upwards. I think the fastest I've ever clocked myself is 150, 160 words per minute accurately. And so, but my writing speed is only somewhere closer to like 40 to 60 words per minute. So my bottleneck is never really my typing speed. It's really just kind of getting the words out of my head and forming them in the head and then putting them onto the page. So dictation software has never been something that I've really looked into too much.
And Michelle, you have one more question from the chat room before we have to wrap it up?
Yes, let me find it while I talk slowly and look. There it is. Yes, go ahead. What?
No, no, go ahead and read a question. I got distracted because of the wine.
How do you keep inspired? And, which is a good question, do you have to work at getting story ideas? Or do you keep a notebook for when the ideas hit and just write them down and then visit them later?
I think everyone has a different process on this. It's funny, I was recently at an author reading a couple days ago, Karen Russell. It was an unexpected thing I did a couple nights ago, and she's actually a Pulitzer nominee, and she was here in Houston doing a little reading of some of her stuff. And I had an idea for a series that I was working on, or I am working on it right now, and it's something I'll put under my own name, but I had this cool idea for it. And I was there with a friend, and I kind of said afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, I got some cool ideas. And she was like, oh, why don't you write it down? And I said, no, I'm not going to write it down. I kind of subscribe to the Stephen King methodology or thinking of if I forget it, then it might not have been a great idea in the first place. So I have a pretty good memory, and so the things that I think are really good, I usually remember them. I don't bother writing them down. But as far as staying inspired, one of the things I find the most inspirational, not only in story ideas, but also in actually just starting my day and starting writing in the first place, I get most of that inspiration from reading. And so whatever books I'm reading, I have a slew of different books that I'm reading of. So I've got the Kindle app right on my phone. I've got it on my iPad. I've got 2 Kindles. I've got my Kindle apps on my computers. I think each one of them is open to a different book. And so
likewise, I do the same thing.
Yeah, so depending on whatever, and I try and stick with genre, so like what genre am I going to be writing today? I try and read, spend 15, 20 minutes reading in that genre beforehand to kind of get myself in that mental space. But I find really that that's where I derive most of the inspiration for ideas and for just sitting down also. But the newspaper is a great place to say, just kind of read stuff and say, man, that would be interesting if this happened, or talking, or my brain's kind of always going of what would make this interesting, not because people are boring or anything, but what would be a cool twist on this that would be that would kind of catch you off guard and make this situation really exciting and interesting. So I usually never struggle with like, what am I going to write? I've got plenty of stuff kind of backed up in my head, and I think after you've been doing this for a year or two, your ideas are going to come to you way faster than you can actually write them. So you're going to get to a point where you're not worried about that, I think.
Do you agree with that, Robert? Because I know you've written quite a few.
That's just how my brain works. I mean, I wake up in the night, and I think it's important to feed it. I think I need to sleep more to replenish my neurotransmitters. I read voraciously, and when I wake up in the night, the walls are alive. I can't shut it off. So
that's not just the acid that you just ate.
Exactly. As the only peace I get is when I'm writing. To get it out.
To shut the voices off.
Yes, when the demons come.
So I have to say this before we finally shut it off. To circle back on something we talked about immediately. Hold on.
Yes,
circle back on something we talked about immediately before we started this. I don't think we got any about the light.
Didn't. No, I was waiting.
No, we didn't get a single person talking about the glowing orb.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say
his power.
I'm not going to say what it is then.
I'll say what it is.
Well, some people know, but I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah, I actually saw what it was at one point when you moved your hand, and then it kind of
like over it, like
the light adjusted, and I saw
the corona. Yeah, got it.
That's where he puts his halo.
Is it a guitar lamp?
I don't know. It's like an alien artifact.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, how about if people who hang around for like the after party? I'll say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. If first things first, for anyone who wants to be involved in the after party, please message on here. I'm leaving a little thing on the chat here. But yeah, maybe we should just do a quick round of plugs.
I do have one other thing to say whenever you're ready.
You do that first then.
Okay. Someone just commented. Pia Sparks,
Mhm.
Pia, I'm not sure. So she said the only bad thing about using the built-in dictation for Mac is that you need internet access. That's actually not true. If you open up your settings and go to dictation and speech, there's an option where you can click it and it will make it offline. It'll download the files that you need. They're not very big, but you can go offline with it. So I just wanted to comment on that for anyone who's listening to this and is curious about it. So
Very nice.
there you go.
Thank you.
Great.
And there will be guitar playing and singing in the after party this time, just so you know.
And I'll probably drink the rest of this bottle of wine while playing guitar. So
And I'm going to sit there like this.
We're going to have a hoot.
So we are hoping that you do come to the after party, right?
Them all away.
Oh, we're not scaring them away? I thought we were scaring them away.
Quick round of plugs. X, what are you working on? What's going on? He's
Oh, he's muted.
Oh, people are. I don't know if he knows he's muted. I'll talk about.
There it is. There it is.
Yep. Yep.
Real quick plug for me. What
you're
going to see right here. You're going to see this Author Strong. It's a website that I'm building, and also I'm thinking about doing a podcast with it. We'll see how it goes. It's still under construction, but basically, I'm looking to put together kind of the one-stop shop of video and article-based content on, the tools that people need to be able to self-publish successfully. So how to use things like Scrivener, how to set up stuff in KDP, how to do promotions, or how to use whatever. I hope to be putting on a lot of video content on there, and then possibly also a podcast to go along with that. Just kind of talking a little bit more about the mechanics behind it. So that's kind of my plug. There's nothing there now. There's a newsletter. Sign up for it, and then you'll start receiving content hopefully before long.
Yeah, and check out the if for those who are interested in Matt's 50K journey, check out the unfinished manuscripts that he had done during those times. It's always interesting to check out what was actually accomplished that day. And like Matt said, it's an experiment. It's worth seeing, what was done in that amount of time.
Yeah, and then I'm also, if anyone's on Twitch, if you go to twitch.tv/MattMorrisAuthor, you can, I'm not live on there right now, obviously, but you can subscribe, and then it'll let you know whenever I go live. So I'll just be, I'll be going live on there whenever I work on stuff. Whenever I start doing it, I'll set up a regular schedule, and I'll have it on there, post it on there. But it'll just be me kind of working and hanging out like this for a couple hours a night while I work, and answering questions and talking and listening to music and drinking, and who knows what other kinds of debauchery will happen.
Great. Robert, what are you working on right now? What can you plug?
I can plug my latest book is The Haunting Lessons. So if people like This Plague of Days, they will like The Haunting Lessons. And I just relaunched my All That Jazz podcast. And I also do the Cool People podcast. So the simplest thing is go to allthatjazz.com. Jazz is with 2 Z's, 2 Z's if you're nasty, and check out that and sign up for the updates.
You said Zed.
That gets me every time.
Yep. Michelle, what can you plug? What can you tell us about? I'm sure that you can talk about the brand new covers that you have for your series.
Can you link those in the thing? I got brand new covers by Xavier, and they're gorgeous. And I'm finishing the 3rd book hopefully this weekend, but I was quite barfy this week, so I'm going to have to push it to Monday.
Quite barfy.
It's hard to type with your head in the trash.
Sick.
Barfy. The word is barfy.
You don't often hear that in a plug, do you?
No.
Whatever.
I was barfy this week, so you can't. Michelle, where's your book at? Well, it's in the trash can right now. I was vomiting all over it.
Yeah, we're just gonna not talk about that.
Yeah, we gotta work on your radio pitch.
To be fair, you brought it up.
Remember it.
Yes,
Michelle Reed. That's Michelle with 2 L's.
Read Michelle's vomit-inducing book.
But yes, we will link the new covers for Michelle's now non-vomit-inducing book with the brand new covers by me. Yay!
They are so good. They're so good.
Yeah, as far as myself goes, I am currently in the works of outlining 2 different series. One epic fantasy involving dragons and all that good stuff, and then one of them involving gods and goddesses. So, stay tuned to see which of those series ends up coming out first, because I'm writing them both simultaneously.
One on each hand.
Yep, that's how I roll. And once again, thanks for everyone who's made comments online and contributing to the conversation. We love your input, and you guys make the show as much as we do. Probably a little bit more, but I have a huge ego, so yes.
Thanks to everyone who made it through to the whole thing and picked up some really nice tips. I like the text especially. Thanks very much, man.
Yeah, and thanks for coming out for guest paneling on this episode, Robert, and thank you for coming on as a guest, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that was fun.
Great.
Bye, everybody. See you in the after party.
Yeah, let's get to the singing.
Yep. So for everyone who wants to get in on the after party, we've left a little message on the website to let us know. And for those who are interested in the flash fiction contest involving the cover design, there will be more news about that next week. We're planning to extend the deadline to for the contest just to make things a little bit more interesting. Since we haven't got iTunes working yet, we're going to open it up once we have iTunes set up, so that way more people can have the chance of being able to get a free book cover. So
that's awesome. Those things can be
expensive. Said yay, but you didn't hear me. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was muted.
Yay from Michelle. And yes, those things can be expensive. Usually, I personally charge anywhere between $80 to $120 for an ebook cover. Paperbacks more expensive than that. So, if you do win the flash fiction contest, who knows? I might be nice and give you a paperback cover. We'll see. We'll see if you're nice. And give me a good flash fiction story between 500 to 2,000 words.
And now everybody, go ahead.
Let's go. Let's leave. Let's go to the after party.
All right. See you guys.
Dankeschön, darling, Dankeschön.
The singing has begun.
Yeah.
You ripped your dress. What a mess.
Thank you, Ferris Bueller, and we're out.
Bye, guys.